Greetings, family. Sista Shanice in the house. Welcome to our news desk. Today's topic, Niger's struggle for independence from economic hardship is showing a glimpse of hope under a new liberation leadership. If you're not already a subscriber to this channel, please do subscribe, and I'd love to welcome you on board. In 2021, Niger found itself ranked 129th out of 132 economies in the Global Innovation Index, highlighting its position among the world's poorest countries despite owning an abundance of uranium and gold deposits that are supplied to France annually. The French colonial empire and French people have long enjoyed a privileged lifestyle from the supplies of uranium and gold. However, recently, in a monumentous coup in Niger, the military independence leaders drew tens of thousands of Nigerians to the national stadium in a powerful display of support. This development shows the Western democratic system doesn't work in parts of Africa, especially those minerally rich regions with populations suffering extreme poverty that is being overlooked by its elected leadership. The emergence of new transitional coup leaders offers a glimmer of hope, and as they show a determination to ensure that Niger's people gain their rightful share of the country's resources, the former president was widely criticized for policies that enrich France while keeping his own citizens impoverished, and face national condemnation and rejection, leading to the current stage of political affairs. In a following commentary and interview, an analysis of Niger's plight and the aspirations of its new leadership can be heard, although the audio quality, and my apologies for that, might be slightly compromised.
African leaders have been called for Thursday after Niger's military junta defied a deadline to restore the democratic president. But the threat of action from the West African group of nations, ECOWAS, may be increasing support in Niger for the coup as people resist the idea of outside interference, and it's fueling suspicion that the West, and especially France, the former colonial power, are only interested in Niger's uranium and gold. Tonight, is military action really on the cards? Their next move, after the military junta in Niger defied an ultimatum to hand back power to the democratically elected president. As the deadline passed, the coup leaders shut down Niger's airspace and called on the population to come to the country's defense, while two neighboring states, also run by military juntas, Burkina Faso and Mali, offered to send in their own delegations to express solidarity. Our foreign affairs correspondent, Secunda Kamani, reports.
The leaders of Niger's coup are in defiant mood. As the deadline set by a regional bloc for the ousted democratically elected president to be released and reinstated expired, supporters of the junta gathered at the national stadium. A chicken daubed in the colours of the French flag was beheaded, its carcass thrown to the crowd in a display of contempt for the country's former colonial ruler, which has led criticism of the coup.
L'objectif de la mobilisation, the aim of the demonstrations is to show the whole world and the international community that we are 100% behind the military, which has taken power. 100%.
Outside the stadium, it's Russian flags being waved. The Wagner group have already been invited in by new military leaders in neighbouring Burkina Faso and Mali. Reports suggest Niger's junta is following suit. The former president, Mohamed Bazoum, was a close ally of the West and came to office in the country's first democratic transition. There's been little show of support with his government in the streets. We spoke to Niger's ousted prime minister, who was in Europe when the coup took place.
The demonstrations you've seen were organised by the junta. Our party members were banned from holding demonstrations. There is repression against anyone who supports President Bazoum. Anyone from his party is liable to be detained.
Realistically, what is it you want the international community to do? Because military intervention that could have disastrous consequences.
We expect the international community to issue strong condemnation of this attempt to seize power. President Bazoum was elected by a majority of the Nigerian people for a 5-year term. The objective is not a confrontation, but freeing President Bazoum, who's being held against his will. They've cut off his access to water and electricity and his ability to meet anyone. The international community must take action.
We've seen lots of Russian flags at the demonstrations. Do you think Russia had a role in this coup?
The coup wasn't organised by demonstrators or by any external power. It was carried out by the head of the presidential guard who took the president hostage. The demonstrations were infiltrated by small numbers of people with Russian flags. We know who these people are. They're activists who take every opportunity to make these kinds of protests. It's not the Nigerian people or Russia that are responsible. It's people who are trying to exploit the situation.
A regional bloc of West African states, rattled by a string of coups in the Sahel region, had warned they could intervene militarily if President Bazoum wasn't back in office by last night. For now, no sign of that, but sanctions are in place, and some say the threats are backfiring.
The extreme sanctions imposed by the West African states are pushing the Nigerian people into the arms of the coup leaders. They even want to intervene militarily on our territory. Up until that point, people had condemned the coup.
These are American and Italian soldiers flying out of Niger. The country had been a key base for Western forces in a region where jihadist insurgents are wreaking havoc. French troops have already been pushed out of Mali and Burkina Faso. Now they look set to leave Niger too. The country's new leaders might be digging in, but despite being a major exporter of uranium, Niger is desperately poor. More instability will mean more suffering.
Well, I've been speaking to David Otto, Director of the Geneva Centre for Africa Security and Strategic Studies, and I asked him why so many people in Niger don't seem to want their democratically elected government.
It was kind of, shocking to see that, the population, especially in Niamey, which is the capital, came up very strongly to support the coupists. But one thing which I see when I spoke to people on the ground is this slow burn. A lot of Nigerians believe that Niger, being one of the poorest countries in the world, having a lot of mineral resources, including uranium, which France benefits from, they think that the level of poverty, the economic mishaps, the level of insecurity, corruption, the military coup leaders, are kind of pointing the population to the direction of France and saying, we are poor. One, because the democratic system of governance is not working. The president seems to be leaning towards France. The French and other Western countries have been on ground. They haven't seen any level of development. So this is the propaganda. This is the narrative. A lot of the people in Niger seems to believe that ECOWAS and the government of Nigeria is being supported strongly by countries like France or the European Union towards a military intervention.
What do you think the effect of a military intervention would be?
We didn't have any kind of intervention when there was a coup in Mali and Burkina Faso and Guinea. So ECOWAS believed, from their perspective, that this was a time to end all these coups happening. They wanted to deploy their forces, as a warning sign, as a classic deterrent to stop anyone from carrying out the coup. For Nigeria, they thought perhaps this would be an opportunity to strengthen democracy. But for the people of Niger, they see the coup, as a form of destabilization, a form of perhaps countries like France wanting to destabilize the country in order to make way with their mineral resources.
We've seen a lot of support for the coup on the streets, but the Prime Minister of Niger has told Channel 4 News that this is because protest in support of the government has been suppressed and that ministers are being arrested. Does that sound credible?
Very credible. We directly, the military coup, then it would justify what the coup leaders have been saying, that this is all France's own making. So there is a lot of anti-French sentiments going on, and I don't think it will be in France's advantage, owing to its presence in the region, to get itself involved directly.
David Austin, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, family, for tuning in, for listening, and especially for sharing. So what's your take on the current situation and state of affairs? What do you think the important next steps are for the liberation leaders? What type of national rebuilding programs should they be pursuing? What type of educational and economic development programs should they be doing? Your comments, your views and thoughts are much, much welcomed and appreciated. Sista Shanice, out of here for now. More love, more strength, and more Vudun power.